So I've done over 100 full game review and plays now, where each one is kind of shows you how to play and then reviewing, of course. So I thought, since I got a few out there, I'd start looking at groups of them and kind of seeing have a certain type of game, which ones I've liked better. And I thought a good start would be looking at Space 4X games, which is explore, expand, exploit, exterminate games. It's a fun genre to look at. And these are ones that I've done full review and plays of. And I've ranked them individually, but I thought I'd look at them together. And as always, subscriptions are appreciated, and sign up to get notified if you'd like to keep up to date with what I'm posting. Appreciate it. So I know there's a lot of them out there and different opinions, but the ones for my personal taste I've liked so far, and there's more to review, are Eclipse, New Dawn for the Galaxy, Outreach, The Conquest of the Galaxy 3000 AD from SPI, Starfall, a game of exploration and conflict in space, and these two are from the 70s. These other three are more recent. Then we have Space Empires 4X, of course, from GMT, and Proxima Centauri from NSKN Legendary Games. So I'll be giving a snapshot of each of these and showing a little bit of, kind of the overview of them, and then show a little bit of a short playthrough of each, and you can kind of see the comparisons that way. So I'll jump into it here. Eclipse. Full title is Eclipse, New Dawn for the Galaxy. Here's the credits. Game design, Tuco Takukalio. Development, graphic design and rulebook, Sampa Sikoyo. Gamebox cover and species illustrations, Alci Haikola. Publisher, Lotopilot.fi from 2011. Acknowledgements and playtesters. And uses rules and hex use elements created by ESA Hubble. It's interesting. And released through their kind permission, so it's tied into actual space images. Comes in a big box that's heavy with all the components. It's 11 by 16 by about 3.5. On the back, talks about the components. Good visual. 2 to 6 players, 14 plus, 30 minutes per player. So we'll see if that works out. That could be optimistic, but we'll see. Good overview. New Dawn for the Galaxy. The galaxy has been a peaceful place for many years. After the ruthless war, much effort has been employed by all major spacefaring species to prevent the terrifying events from repeating themselves. The Galactic Council was formed to enforce precious peace and has taken many courageous efforts to prevent the escalation of malicious acts. Nevertheless, tension and discord are growing among the 7 major species and in the Council itself. Old alliances are shattering, and hasty diplomatic treaties are made in secrecy. The confrontation of the superpowers seems inevitable. Which faction will emerge victorious and lead the galaxy under its rule? So as Eclipse, places you in control of a vast interstellar civilization, competing for success with its rivals. You explore new star systems, research technology, build spaceships to wage war with. Many paths to victory. The shadow of the great civilizations are about to eclipse the galaxy. Lead your people to victory. Here's all the components included. As you can see, quite a variety and quantity of items included. Going through setup here. So I'm going to be doing 2 players. One will be a Terran, the Terran Union, and then I'll do the Orion Hegemony. And their special is, so they start with a cruiser instead of an interceptor. And with the move action, they may move up to 2 ships or 1 ship twice. The reputation track is shown. different ship blueprints. Initial technologies are neutron bombs, Gauss shield. They do a trade rate of 4-1. And then starting storage is 3, 3, and 5 is shown. And the starting sector number is 232. Then setup. Put the ship part tiles and the round marker in turn 1 here on the supply board. Put the technology tiles in a bag and shuffle them. And for 2 players you draw 12 technology tiles. Then put the drawn technologies on the board. I drew a Gauss shield, a couple nanorobots, improved hull, positron computer, a couple phase shields, advanced mining, advanced economy, advanced labs, plasma missile, antimatter cannon. Then you put the reputation tiles in a bag and shuffle them. Put the discovery tiles on the supply board. Then you put the ancient ship tiles, orbital and monolith tiles, damage cubes, and the trader card on the supply board. And put the galactic center tile in the middle of the board. Put a discovery tile there in the center. Then on top of the discovery tile you put the galactic center defense system tile. Put the sector hex tiles in 3 piles. 1 for the inner, 2, and 3 for the outer. Starting player marker to the player that spent the less time on Terran. And the Orion hegemony will have the starting marker. And then you take the starting hex that corresponds to the race you've chosen. So for the Orion hegemony, that's defined hex 232. So they'll place it there. And for the Terran Union, their starting hex is 225. I'll put it here because they put it in the 2-player configuration. Then you take all the yellow and green chips and set them off to the side. They each get their 3 ambassador tiles, 3 colony ship tiles, summary card with the action phase up. Then 1 influence disc on each circle of influence track. 1 population cube on each square of the 3 population tracks. You keep the furthest one empty. 1 storage marker of each color on the storage track. Then you put the initial ships, population cubes, and influence disc. So for the Terrans, you get an interceptor population cube on money, materials, and science. Can't put one yet on the advanced ones, of course. And then you have an influence disc there. For the Orion hegemony, you got a cruiser and a population disc for science and materials, and also an influence disc. And you take those population cubes from the appropriate area on their tracks. Turn 3. This time's yellow goes first since they were the first to pass last time. They gotta watch their money a little bit because they've populated a few worlds and knocked down their resources. They only have 5 in their treasury. But they'll be doing an explorer. They're going to kind of a mid-range world here, so they'll draw from the 2 pile. Nothing too interesting. They'll be lining up the wormhole. There's a discovery there though, so they will put a disc there to get that discovery. It's a +6 materials, which is nice, so they'll get that. To 15. And then green. They're actually doing okay money-wise, so they can do some work. They're going to do an explorer. Go to a mid-range world here, so we'll see what they get. So they can get some income there, so they'll do that. claim that. They'll put a population on this money world. That's good. So we'll flip that colony ship over. Take a population disk. Then yellow. So we're going to do a move, and each of these interceptors can move. They have a drive of 3, so they can go 3 wormholes. They want to, I think green might be coming through here. So they're going to mass up there a little bit. So 1, 2. They'll keep 2 interceptors up there. And that's all they'll do in their move, but they have to use a resource for that. So their turn, and then we go to green. So green, he sees what's going on here and he wants to build a ship. He wants to build another cruiser. So he'll do a build. Cost 5 material. So knocks it down there. And he gets a cruiser from right here. And they're going to explore. Again, they're in a mid-world here. See what they have. Nothing too exciting. They do expend a resource to move to explore though. Yellow passed. Green's gonna move. And I apologize, he's got a cruiser here, not a dreadnought. So he'll move. They can move up to 2, but he'll move here, and then he'll move up here as well. That's all he'll do. Then he'll pass, and that'll be the end of that turn. Then the upkeep phase. So for yellow, they have -7. But they're bringing in 3, so they're at a -4. They only have 5 in their treasury, so they're down to 1. They're not in real good shape there. As far as their science goes up 6 more, so kind of track with singles and 10s there. Similarly with materials, so 15 to get 6 more, so he's up to 21. Tracking the 10s and 1s, he's up to 21. Then green, he's got -5 income, 4 coming in, so a net of -1. Moves that down. 3 materials, so he moves that up. 3 science, moves that up. Then the cleanup phase. Move these back. Didn't do any colony ships. Move these back. Flip over the colony ship. Advance to turn. Next turn. I'll show a little bit of this turn. So he's going to move. He can move 3. He's got 3 interceptors there. It's end of his turn. And then green will go, and he'll do a move as well. He'll move his 2 cruisers in there. There's going to be battle. And then next I'll just have them both pass, and then we'll get to the combat phase. Then combat, we'll be doing combat in this hex with green and yellow. Here's the layout of the cruiser for green and the interceptor for yellow. By default, since since yellow has the influence desk here, this means that they're the defending players because they're defending their system. So green goes first. And if there are missiles, they do a missile phase first, but neither of them have missiles, so they'll do their ion cannons. And they have 2 ion cannons, one on each of the cruisers. Roll the dice. A 6 automatically hits. And since the cruiser doesn't have any, to absorb damage, they're gone. Then the 3, you take the benefit of your computer, which is +1, so 3 + 1, and then you deduct the shield. So 3 + 1 minus the 1, they're back to 3, so they don't hit. Then yellow goes. They have 2 ships remaining. They each have an ion cannon. I think that's going to work. They got a 3. And they don't have a computer to give them a bonus. And then it's a -1 for the Gauss shield that they have, so neither of them hit. Green goes. Six again, kind of lucky, but it's part of the game. 6 automatically hits. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of sense of how it plays. So this is an excellent game. It's one of the earlier games, like I said, 1976. On the inside cover, it's got a little bit of theme. Outreach is a grand strategic simulation of intragalactic conflict. The scale of the game is generally huge. The 23 by 35 map depicts an area some 28,000 light years by 50,000 light years, including about 1/3 of the galaxy. Outreach is concerned with a period of vast, explosive expansion by an ambitious, dynamic civilization. Each X on the maps is color-coded to indicate the relative star density. The player is charged with the task of guiding the destiny of a civilization. The components, so the rules, and there are these 4 sets of player tables, and we'll talk about them, but it's scatter effects, how likely you are to have problems when you're moving around. Interaction is how you interact with others, and it's an interesting approach. You do it secretly, and then you compare to see the effects of combat or not, etc. There are autonomous forces which come into play, which aren't non-player forces, and this is what if they're hostile or allies or not. Fleets of starships, and then there's stargates, which are basically basic locations of civilization where they come from, and this is how when you're fighting, you can reduce other people's stargates. If kind of a battle combat table here, you explore the galaxy, the likelihood you are of finding resources and systems. So each hex is very large. It's like 1,200 light years. So even if you're in the same hex, you may not see each other. So this is a likelihood of you seeing each other if you're in the same hex, basically. And this is, the main combat results table, and then this is here for converting percentages from this, but we'll talk about that. It compares the attacker, it's the defense's strength. Fate table, so part of this is fate. There's a chance of different, like seeing civilizations, or having problems in your civilization that reduce your forces, getting advanced technology, etc. is all captured on this. And this game can play solitaire or up to 4 players. And then here's the tray, which is very nice. Like the rest of it, it's 40 years old, so it takes maybe a bit of care. And there's a reinforced backing which you may have to tape a little bit, but it's nice. It's got comes with dice. It's got these covers for the trays. A nice mix of components. As you'll see, the game accomplishes a lot with not a very large. There's a good quantity of components, but there's not a lot of different types of components. Each player has groupings of starfleets, which one starfleet force can include various mixes of explorers, regular and also dreadnoughts within that. And then there's these beacon stars, which makes it easier to basically move around the board. There's wisdom chits, which if you get one or two wisdom chits, you have a chance of increasing your civilization level. So these are resource chits. When you discover a system, when you're exploring, these are the amount of resources that they can be developed when you convert them into a Stargate that they can be developed to achieve. And this indicates different areas of the map. This is on a spiral axis, this is on the fringe of a spiral axis, and this is off of a spiral axis, or in the interspace between them. The scenario I'm going to do is a solitaire scenario. It's a PSL outleap, where the scenario picks up a distant and hugely expanded PSL descendant civilization, occupying an area some 10,000 times its original size. So it's from the initial star force, it's basically been expanding. And it is still dynamic and growing. So the forces at start set up these 3 stargates at these locations, Sol, and then the other locations. And then it tells you the stargate values on those. And for instance, on here I show that these are the stargate numbers and these are their values. And then the fleets, there's one Explorer, one regular in 1316. And a regular on 1216. The initial available resource points are 5. Civilization is level 1. Victory conditions. The player wins if he manages to raise civilization of the PSL to 2 at the end of the game. It's a game like this, 25 turns. If the player gains control of the X Wisdom chit, it signifies the discovery of the fact that the nuclear core has exploded, an explosion spreading outwards in a gargantuan chain reaction at the speed of light. The game is automatically lost, and the player has about 40 million years to entirely evacuate the galaxy, give or take a few hours. And then as far as set up the map then, these are the stargates in the defined locations, Sol, and then the other 2. And then there's 2 fleets. One is in Sol, and the other is on 1216. So that's what setup looks like. And then the wisdom chits done are in the galactic core, and they're randomly selected from the 10. So one of those might be the X, or it may not be. So let's set up, and then we'll play. So I'm in the beginning of turn 17 here. So the sequence of a turn is if you have multiple players, you determine shift order. I'm just doing a solitaire, so you do your shift, you do your exploration, you do your interrelation, which can involve combat, your fate, and then you do your resource. So I'll do movement in order of the different forces I have. So Fleet 201 here will move. He's moving out to explore here. Move up there. And since my technology level is 1, there's not a risk of just moving one hex, but if I move multiple, there's a chance of scatter. So fleet 2 here. So he's going to be moving through here. He'll just move 1, 2, 1 also, and then since he's coming to an area where there's previously blocked sight to a beacon star, he can see new beacon stars now. Okay, so you do this and you roll dice and add 2 to it. So 3, you discovered 3 beacon stars. So as far as their placement, so for solitaire, the player chooses a hex row, rolls the die twice for each hex. For each hex that I roll a 9, I place it there. So these are the 3 beacon stars that are placed, and then they will be useful when you shift to them. There's no chance of scatter if you go to them, since they're like a navigation aid. So then 203 will continue moving out here. 204 will move out here and explore. 205 will stay here to develop. 206 will move here to develop at Stargate. 207 will move back. 208 will move more rapidly to the galactic core. So there's what's referred to the scatter table, and they're going to try to go 3 hexes. So roll, and they're okay. There's no scatter. If they were to scatter, then they would be moving to 1 or 2, etc. adjacent hexes in a random direction, and they would lose some fleet. So they're able to move 3. .209 will stay there to develop, and then 210 will stay there to turn that into a Stargate. So that's movement. And then exploration. Exploring, nothing. So they need either 1 or 2 depending on how many they have. They didn't find anything. Didn't find anything. Getting unlucky, didn't find anything. Everything 6s, didn't find anything. So there was no discoveries. If there had been a discovery, which would be convenient for demonstration, you would, for instance, if some of these had a score, so for instance, if there's 2 regular, the die roll would be 2. If you have 2 explorers and a regular, you would be 4 plus 1, so 5, and you'd shift to this. And then you roll a die roll, you would find an exploration. And if they were, you would randomly draw a resource chit and then put it under there to indicate the capability that they can develop there. So that's exploration. And then interaction, I'm not going to be doing anything there, I'm just trying to get away from these. Then the fate roll. So you look at your system points, and there's currently 20. You total up the values of your Stargate, and then you consult. Here's the fate table. So obviously you go that 1, 6. Okay, looks like something's going to happen. H. I believe that's an autonomous race. So here's the fate. H is a appearance of another autonomous force. Place 3 stargates and 7 star fleets on the game map. So if I hadn't done any exploring, then I would ignore that, but I did do exploring, and then I'll see which of these. So it's actually here where there's an autonomous force. So and then resources. So this is where you do development, etc. So first of all, he's here, and 206 has 1 fleet, so they can move 231 up to a value. They can increase the value of that by 1. And you take away Starfleet, and you'll keep this here until it reaches its max. Okay, and then this one is turning that into a Stargate. So he has, you need 2 fleets to turn him into a Stargate. So he's got 2, and then he'll turn that into a Stargate. And then developing fleets. So then we calculate how much, this is the number of system points. If one of the die rolls is that you, from fate, you lose basically Stargates, and that didn't happen here. So so basically the maintenance is when you have multiple fleets beyond 1 that aren't explorers, you deduct that. So there's 2, there's 1 extra, so it's 1, 2, so there's 2 maintenance. So the total resources you have are 18 plus what was previous, so it's 33. And then I'm going to build some fleets. 209 and 205, a lot of explorers. So that takes 10. So I expended 10 points, and that gets me down to 23 remaining. So that's how that works. So that's the completion turn for me, but now the autonomous forces. First of all, these are hostile, and so what'll happen is you take the number of these according to the Stargate, you place them there, and then the rest you're going to have going towards the nearest Stargate, which is 4 of these. And each of these forces only has 1 regular Starfleet. They don't have different groupings of them. So this is Civilization 1, and they have to go 3. So they roll in the fate table 6. So, right, I'm sorry, they roll in the scatter table. So they roll 6, and actually they're okay. So. It looks like there's going to be combat there. And then also on here there's an interesting a way of tracking the interactions. You keep track on the matrix. So since both these are hostile, you'll place markers saying their hostility. They have, the autonomous forces have Stargates. They can develop system or ships themselves. So they have 3, 4, 4. So each of these can develop a regular Starfleet with 1 remaining for next time. So that's a completed turn 17. Starfall from Yaquinto in 1979. It's one of my personal favorites. There's basically designer notes that kind of give a sense of the theme. Passage through black holes, called making Starfall in this game, is risky business because at the center of the black hole is an item called the Singularity. The Singularity is the heart of the black hole's gravity. If a ship enters into the Singularity, it will never come out again. If the approach is not perfect, it will be utterly destroyed. There are two basic categories of ships. Pi ships, which are tied to the immediate neighborhood of their system bases, and infinity ships, which are able to travel between the stars and make starfall. Because of their range, Pi ships are relegated to a secondary importance. It is the infinity ships that will make the conquests and discoveries, and the Pi ships will consolidate them. So that's kind of the general premise. It's for 2 to 4 players, and you can actually do it solitaire too. Components, rules. So here's tables, there's some dice rolling. So I'll talk about these player aids, but it's tables, reference table, one of these. And there's some, like I said, there's a log sheet with, a two-sided log sheet. I mean, it's not too intense the amount of bookkeeping, but you kind of keep track of your star systems you have. And then there's 4 operation sheets, what they call them, which basically you can compose different fleets, and then on the board you will have fleet markers for these, so that your opponent won't know what's in your fleet, but this is where you compose your different fleets. And also when you develop systems, you have defense on those as well, and this is where you track the amount of defense in your systems. There's 4 of those. And then in several other games, they have these sheets that are designed to keep your opponent from seeing what you're doing on your fleets, etc. I mean, I don't know how effective that is, but they've included these. There's 4 of these, one for each player, and a board which I'll show in more detail. Cardstock, I think it's very nice. Standard Yaquinto counters, which I really like Yaquinto counters because they're simple, but they're thick and robust. And I really like Yaquinto dice too. It seems like a weird thing, but they're kind of unique. They're heavy. I know you can't see that they're heavy, but I like Yaquinto dice. And they come with a tray, which is nice. So the way the game works is you see the 1 through 6, and then in these different quadrants you have 1 through 6. So this is how you can randomize locations of things by rolling 6-sided dice to get quadrants and then locations within quadrants. So we're going to talk about setup and play here. The scenario I chose a scenario 6, which since I'm going to be doing it solitaire, it seems like it adapts really well to solitaire play, even though it's shown for 3 to 4 players. So the concept is that there's 2 players, and at some point enemy fleets come in the side of the board. For the purposes of me doing solitaire, I'll set up as shown, and then I'll basically have them be non-violent to each other, and they'll only be attacking the intruding forces, which I think is reasonable for this scenario. For each of the 2 exploring players, they have a home system, which I've shown here, and then they have another developed system within that quadrant, which is shown here. There's a starfall point in that quadrant, and which quadrant it is, and then the location within this quadrant is basically done by dice. So home system, developed system, starfall point, and then you roll randomize for a quadrant to what the focus of that starfall is, and the focus means that's the quadrant to where you would go from the starfall point. And where you go from a starfall point is to the center of that quadrant. It doesn't go to another point, it goes to the center of the quadrant. It's a one way, so you go in here and you end up in the quadrant B. You don't go back from there. That's how starfalls work. So the focus of the first starfall is this, and then according to the scenario, there's a developed system here and another starfall point, which is, these are both randomized into placement here. And then you also randomize, the focus of this starfall point, which turns out here. And then in that quadrant, there's a colonized system, not a developed one, but a colonized. And so that's how that works. And then similarly, the same thing then for the orange player. So then finally, as far as setup, as far as the starfall log sheet, so I showed how the starfall mapping is on the back, and then when the enemy comes in and they find starfall points, I'll just also indicate this on here and have like a black line instead of a blue line to differentiate the two. And so one thing in this scenario is a little bit different. So usually it's only explorer ships that can search for systems in starfalls and ion clouds and star clouds. But in this scenario, the enemy fleet, the military ships are allowed to be the explorers. That way it kind of simplifies it a little bit. And then on the other side of the sheet, each of the yellow and orange worlds, had been terraformed, but I just set their type to temperate or Terran. And then so for the resource points, it defined the homeworld as 12. And then to determine for the developed and colonized how many resource points they had, I use this chart where you roll basically a 6-sided dice, and then you see what the developed and the colonized resource points are. So now I'll get into gameplay. I'm at turn 5. I have some Infinity development ships in the pipeline. So it turns out for pie ships, so each turn you get you accumulate all your resource points for your systems, and then you expend them during the next turn. They don't carry over turn to turn, so each turn you have to be efficient how you use them. For when you build pie ships, they come on the board the turn that you build them, but for Infinity ships, since they're more complex, they're built 4 turns out from the time you initiate them. So you put the markers upside down 4 turns out from where you're at, and then when you get to that turn, you get those and you put them in your system. So that's how that works. The enemy fleet, 2 enemy fleets have come in, one here and one here, and where they came in was, rolling the 2 6-sided to find the quadrant, and then 2 6-sided to find out the location of the quadrant. And they're going on pie ships so they can move 3 hexes per turn. So for exploring, so there's a couple of ways when you explore, you see if you can discover starfalls or systems or other things, ion storms or star clouds. And there's 2 ways to do it. One is explore ships, and I just got one, so I didn't have one before. But the other way is an automatic system search. So it turns out in each quadrant where you have a developed system, you can do a search. You can do 1 search per turn. And from that, so orange hasn't discovered anything, but yellow has discovered 1 system there, 1 system there. This shows you roll a dice to figure out, based on the density, basically the systems, how likely it is to find another one. So the more dense it is, the more that's in there, the less likely you are to find something. But when you do find something, then you go to discovery type and you see if you see a system, multiple system, or a star cloud, ion cloud, starfall. So it turns out in these 2 cases, they were both systems that were discovered. When you discover a system, then you roll to figure out resource points, and then also the system compatibility. Compatibility basically says how much you have to expend efforts to change it so that it's habitable to you. So system type is, molten, hot, arid, temperate, which would be Terran. So if you get like a T here, you'd go to the Terran table, then you would roll and then see if there's a life form, and then also what type of life form. So from that procedure, for the two worlds, one was found not to have life forms, and it's a cold planet. So you go to the cold planet table, and here, and you roll 2 6-sided, and it's unlikely to get a life form. And in this case, I didn't get one, but the other one was a temperate planet, and from that you're fairly likely to get a life form. It turns out, so I rolled and I got an avian life form. So you can see how that gives some character to the game. So there's the avian race that lives there, and then you figure out how hostile, aggressive, and what kind of technology they have. And it turns out they're hostile, so the avians don't like your race. But as far as aggressive, they're passive, so they don't like you, but they're probably not going to do anything about it. And they have technology, and then they have some, defense. And the total defense is basically the sum of how hostile, aggressive, and their capabilities are. And that defense then is what comes into play when you try to, conquer the planet. And then for what it doesn't have a race, you can go and colonize that. If once you set it up so you can handle the environment, you don't have to attack anybody, you colonize it. Here, and then back here, then you track. So you have to expend basically effort to colonize and then to develop, and you basically check off the boxes as you proceed along these ways. I won't go into detail there, but when you go from, you randomly determine, what the resource points are for the planet, from this table. And so, for instance, for the one that didn't have a life form, it turns out I got 6 resource points. And then, so when you colonize it, then you will achieve those 6 resource points. You can use them. When you develop it, you will get 9 points. And similarly, if you have 2 colonized, you'll develop 2, 3. So it shows you also the benefit of your efforts of developing planets. And your development ships are the ones that colonize and develop planets. The enemy fleet got close enough in that there's going to be a battle now, and so it's up here. So combat then, as it says in the rules, combat is very kind of quick and deadly. That's kind of an interesting part of this game, that is very focused on not so much the battle. You can do the battles, but there's a lot of planning to get to the battles, because you don't want to expend all these resources and then lose your ships. The enemy fleet Q has come into the area, the 3 light year space, where yellow fleet A is. So those are fleets. So now we'll go to the operations sheet and resolve that battle. So Q is attacking A. It is simultaneous, so both sides will attack and assess damage. You go by the combat factor now. Q has 3 military Infinity ships and 3 military Pi ships, and this grid shows you the combat factors. So this is just multiplication here. There's each military military Infinity ship has a combat factor of 10. Each military Pi has a combat factor of 3. 13 times 3 gives you 39. The combat factor for the enemy fleet is a 39. For fleet A, it only has 1 Pi military and 1 Pi Infinity, so that'd be 13. So then it comes down to the combat results table. This is the combat factor of the attacking ship. You roll the dice, and then the result here is how many ships are lost of the defender. And so when you do damage, then the defender can choose which are lost. So first of all, let's look at the A attacking the enemy fleet. Like I said, it's simultaneous. You can look at it either way. So that'd be, it's 13. We get 9. So, 3 ships are lost, which is significant. So I'll just indicate that by kind of just setting them aside. And now, so the enemy fleet is attacking the yellow, and their comeback factor is 39. 5. So they've lost 4 ships, or they basically lost all their ships. But it was, a fairly even battle. They lose a couple, they lose 3, and that's the battle. And then the play continues in that manner. A game from 2011, Space Empires 4X, from GMT Games. Space Empires 4X is a game in the finest tradition of 4X space games: explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. The game is rich in theme: carriers, fighters, mines, cloaking, dreadnoughts, merchant shipping, colonization, mining, terraforming, shipyards, black holes, war points, non-player aliens, doomsday machine, everything an epic space opera needs. Comes with 4 10-sided dice. The rule book also comes with a scenario book. One thing that's good about this game is that it has solitaire scenarios, which is usually for space conquest games. The way you do solitaire is you basically have 2 opponents, and then you kind of flip doing each. But in this one, there's actually 1 player scenario, solitaire. Several good scenarios. 2-player, multiplayer. Shows different setups and victory conditions. For solitaire, there's the doomsday machine, where you basically have a Death Star kind of thing that comes in, and you have to build up your empire so you can defeat them. You can also simulate alien empires in a solitaire scenario. And that comes with 4 nice player reference cards. Let's see. So there's several different ships you can build, battle stations, etc. Shipyards also. And this talks about the options there, what you need to build them, their strengths. And then you can also develop technology, and this discusses that. There is a little bit of bookkeeping, not much, it's pretty streamlined, and so you get a pad of sheets, so you can track basically technologies of the different ships. They have a certain technology as they're built, and then they maintain that technology unless they're you refit them. So it's just a 2-sided sheet, a little bit of bookkeeping, but not terrible. Really nice counters, I think. So there's 4 sheets of 5/8" counters, and they're nice and thick. The final component in the box is the map, and it's a very nice mounted map. It's a very nice large map. So before we get into details, here's an overview of the component setup. And one thing I'd like to point out, so on the left, you'll see that tray, and that doesn't come with the game, but it's a very nice add-in to have, and it's produced by GMT Games, who actually makes this game, so it's designed for the components and it works really well. So the large map, which is shown here, basically there's the home system markers, and again these are the red ones. And then beyond that, there's the deep space markers, which again are the white. And you just set it up as shown there. So first, focusing on the setup of the homeworld system, which again is the red items, and they're randomized. So you place the red items down. You just see the generic, but for here, I'm just to show you options. I've flipped over a few of the options. So there's the homeworld, which red, yellow, green, blue each have their homeworld. So, and then there's asteroids, which affect combat if you are involved in that space. There's minerals, which give you more resource points if you bring them back to homeworld. Black holes, which give you a chance of basically having your ships destroyed. Worlds that you can colonize. Nebulas that also affect combat in this space. And then barren worlds, which you need to terraform before you can colonize them. So then showing the setup beyond the homeworld again. So beyond the homeworld, it's these white markers. And again, they're randomized, so you set them out, you don't know what's there, but for demonstration here, I'm showing you what options you have. And there's some similarities between what you see there, and then there's also some different options compared to the homeworld. One is supernova. So supernova basically means you can't use that space. Asteroids, again, similar to before, it affects combat, mineral, a little bit higher level, but basically it gives you resource points if you move them back to a home. Danger basically means your ship is destroyed. Warp point is advanced, but it gives you options of basically warping if you have a receiving warp point. Lost in space, for multiplayer, it lets other players move your ship around to adjacent hexes. Black hole, again, the chance of your ships being destroyed. Nebula affects combat. Barren, you have to terraform before you can colonize that planet. So for a demonstration of play, I went through this scenario to the point where I was able to explore all of my home world systems. So I'll kind of walk through that. So what I got going here, here's my home world. I got a shipyard. Here I'm building a cruiser and a miner right now. And as I explore out here, I have these scouts going here, and you put markers under them to say how many you have in there. So there's one of those. If I would have multiple of the same class, I would do that. So I've colonized a couple of worlds. This one has 5 resource points coming out. This one's still in development, but it's so it goes to 3, and then at the next economic development, it'll move up to a 5. And as I explored out here, I found several planets, nebulas, black holes, which I rolled and I didn't lose a ship when I went there, asteroids, which would affect combat, and several minerals. So I developed a miner. I have a miner coming here, and I have another one here. So the miners go out, they get the minerals, and then they bring them back to a world, and then you get credit for those, a one-time thing. So that's kind of what I got going on here. Haven't lost any ships. The only opportunity I had, chance I had to lose this ship was in the black hole, and I didn't. So you go basically 3 moves, and then you do a economic phase. So this is what my sheets looking like so far. So it's been moving along pretty quickly. I've gone through 6 phases, developed several ships, developed a shipyard, spent some money on technology, Then you also do maintenance. I don't have it shown here, but basically you deduct the amount of hulls you have to capture your maintenance. I just didn't show it here. And I have developed some technology levels as well. So overall, I found that it's moving along. I was surprised at how efficiently it moves along. There's not much dice rolling at this point. Sorry. So the next, so in this scenario, then, so I'm developing ships. I'm developing, getting resources, developing systems, and in this scenario, it's the Doomsday Machine scenario. So depending on your difficulty level, it defines when your Doomsday Machine comes. There's 3 of them. So easy would be in turn 8, 10, and 12. And then these are the strength of the Doomsday Machine, which is shown here, discusses attack, defense, hull size, correlating to the strength and how many attacks it has. So I've gone through 6 economic phases, so it's not looking like super great for me, because if I do a hard scenario in the next turn, the Doomsday Machines will be entering on the perimeters, one at a time. So if I were to do easy, I'd have a couple more turns to develop. But if I were even to do like the normal scenario, I'm pretty sure I'd be destroyed by the Doomsday Machines, because I've been focusing on exploring, and I probably should have spent more time developing worlds, but that's where it's at right now. So another aspect of this is the combat, and since I'm doing Solitaire, I haven't done combat, but when the Doomsday Machine comes, I will. And I think my understanding is that's also pretty streamlined, because basically what you have so there's basically 3 factors. There's the attack strength, the defense strength, and then the hull size. So the hull size dictates how many hits you can take before you're destroyed. So hull size 1, you have 1 hit, you're destroyed. Hull size 2, you take 1 hit, you'd indicate it with damage, and then if you do another hit, you're destroyed, and 3, etc. And then so basically the way the attack works is that there's also the attack class, which is basically A, B, C, and the higher, A is before B, B is before C. So the better your attack class is, that dictates when your turn is. So A would go before B, for instance, they would fire. It's not simultaneous. It goes by your attack class. So you would fire, and then you modify your attack by your technology. So you have your score plus your technology, and then you would subtract the defender's defense rating plus their technology. And the difference between the modified attack and defense is in a number. Like if it were 5 and 2, it'd be 3, and then you would roll a 3 or less, and that would mean you would have a hit. So it's just 1 dice roll for each attack, which is enough for variation, but it's pretty streamlined. I think that's also very efficient. It's Exodus Proxima Centauri from NES-KN Legendary Games. Game designed by Andrei Novak and Agnieszka Kopera. Apologize if I mispronounced those. After a devastating nuclear war, 6 human factions are seeking shelter in the Centauri system. On the verge of extinction, the humans are saved by a superior civilization allegedly the Centaurians, and each faction is given a fresh start on a new planet. Thus, the exodus of humanity seems to have ended on the planets orbiting the star called Proxima Centauri. When the Centaurians announce their departure, the struggle for power commences once again. In Exodus Proxima Centauri, 6 factions fight for dominance in an epic empire-building game, striving to build a new human empire on the ashes of the Centaurian civilization. Each player will build his own space fleet of customized ships and conquer new planets, fight the Centaurian resistance, and the other players negotiate and vote for political decisions, research Centaurian technologies, and much more. Kind of shows you the components. So it's a big box with a lot of components. So here's setup. I'm doing 2 players, yellow versus green. First of all, you put the High Council hex in the center, and then you put the homeworlds in these 2 different locations. And this is from the layout map for 2 players. And then you randomly take the other mix of hexes for red and green asteroids and planets and put them on in this arrangement. Centaurian resistance ships, again in the configuration shown in the setup map. Put the number of type of each resources on the asteroids and planets shown here. For instance, 3 red, 4 green. Political card shuffled here next to the High Council board. The Centaurian resistance cards are the 3 different types shuffled next to the High Council board. Action cards. Bonus action cards. Turn order cards. I'll have green star as the Chancellor and yellow as the Vice Chancellor. 3 population cubes on each of the homeworlds. Each player gets 5 CP. And they start with a Dark Raider and a Battle Carrier on their home planet with the corresponding ship blueprints. And then to put on the blueprints, they get 4 nuclear drives, 2 phase cannons, and 1 electromagnetic shield. And I'll put the drive, of course, in each of the ships. I have a couple extra for other ships that come along. The shield on the battle carriers, and cannons on all the ships. Turn markers set on 1. And when the hexes are set up, all the numbers are lined in the same directions. You see the ones going off to that side, so they're all consistent that way. Then we'll get into play. Up to turn 2 now. So moving ahead a little bit here to turn 3. So in turn 2, there was some research and trade that went on. The political card is protect the civilians. Each player may immediately research civilian ship technology. So green got that, yellow had it already. The bonus action was mining. So they replenished the resources on the red and green planets. Green did a battle against level 1 resistance, and they lost a ship but won the battle. So they got a victory point for that. Yellow decided to move over here and go against the level 1 over here. They didn't want to take on this level 2 resistance, so they're back over here. They both, in the research, they both got hypersonic rockets. They have a hypersonic rocket on a planet there. And in the trade, there's yellow did some stuff in the common market. I put the block there to indicate that was yellow. So then we'll get into turn 3. So first of all, reset market. Yellow had sold phasium, and from the market they get 5 CP for that, so they'll clear that off. Each population, they each get 2 populations on their home planets. Get CP income. They get 5 CP for each blue planet. And they both have their homeworld and a blue planet, so they get 10. Exinium and pay tax, get Phasium, pay tax. So when you collect one, you have to pay 1 CP in tax, or if they have population. So green gets Exinium, but they have to pay 1 in tax. Yellow has a Phasium, they'll get, but they gotta pay tax. So council stage, a couple good ones. One is sacrifice, which is executive decision. Every player may sacrifice 1 population on a planet to receive 2 extra resource tokens of his choice from the bank, tax-free, or council aid. Every player receives 1 resource tokens of his choice from the bank, tax-free. So we'll put the aid on A, sacrifice on B. They're both good, so they don't think there's going to be any negative outcome. I'll do it like I did before and randomize it. Council aid sounds pretty good. He's going to vote for A. Yellow will also vote for A and see how much they spend. It's a tie. The current chancellor is yellow, so he'll choose A, but they both lose 3. And the political card is council aid. So it's applied immediately. So you get CP, Exinium, or Phasium, their choice. So green, they could use some Phasium. They get a Phasium because they don't mine that yet. And yellow could use Exinium because they don't mine that yet. Bid for Chancellor. I'll randomize it. Both bid 2. In this one, though, specifically the Chancellor can't break a tie. And since yellow's the Chancellors, they're disadvantaged. So green will get to be Chancellor, but they both have to pay their CP. Then bonus actions, the Vice Chancellor will choose 3. He'll choose mining, research, or build ships. Then the Chancellor will choose from those, and he'll go with mining. He likes that because that'll replenish their supplies. Then we'll go into actions. They're both going to go with banking for their first action. It's good to have some extra resources. You get 6 CP. Yellow gets 5 CP. They're both kind of low in population though, so they don't want to do the second. They don't want to do the first reaction because they'd have to put a population on there. So then they go to the second action. And they both have the technology basic politics, so they can use all the cards in their hand for the trade instead of keeping that one out. Green is going to go with build ships, and he's going to build 1 battle carrier, and that costs 4 CP and 1 Exinium. And he's got an Exinium. He'll put that on his homeworld. Yellow's going to do research. And he wants to get a fusion drive. So it's 4, but he puts a population there. And he's done 1 in this column already, so he can deduct 1 point for that. So it only costs 3 now. And he also has the same type of technology, so he can deduct 1 from that. So it only costs him 2 CP. And then the secondary action. He could do mining, or he could do one of the others, but it costs him 2 population. This can be replenished from the mining bonus action anyway, so he's not going to do that. Trade. He doesn't want to spend a population to do trade, so. Next time Yellow will likely use the buy upgrade action so he can upgrade his ships to the fusion drive. Then the bonus action is mining, which basically means that their planets that do mining will be replenished up to their full. You'd roll a die for that, but they're only down one, so they're at full. So the fire weapons of mass destruction stage, they each have a hypersonic rocket now, so they can do that. And the closer you're more likely to hit. You basically roll the die and see if you get greater than that the distance. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3. So he's got to get 4 better. He fails. Yellow then is going to fire. His missile opportunity will come back next turn. And again, he's going to go. He'll go over here. This is also 3. He hits. And then for damage, it's a hypersonic missile. So hypersonics take out resources, and you get to roll 5 dice for hypersonic, and a 5 or 6 represents a hit, and then you take out that number of resources. Pretty good damage. He's got 3 hits, so it takes out 3 resources. They do conquest stage, some amount population. He's going to be loading up this battle carrier he just bought. It's a little bit confusing because he's only got 1 display here for 2 ships, so he'll show population on ship 1, which is the furthest out on the top, and then he's got 2 on the bottom that he loaded up from the planet here. So he's got those loaded up. Yellow doesn't have any to load up. Then move. So these guys have both chosen to go off the 3 side here. They'll engage with this Centaurian resistance. And then yellow is going to be moving in the 6th direction here to engage this first level Centaurian resistance. So a couple battles. So the battle I got going on here is a battle carrier and a Dark Raider against a level 2 Centaurian resistance. And you look at the number of dice rolled in the shields. Centaurian resistance gets 3 die rolls and has 2 shields. And green has a total of 2 dice rolls from their weapons here. And they have, one of their ships doesn't have a shield and one does. It's a little bit unclear to me if the ship can take damage if it doesn't have a shield, but it doesn't say anything about that. So I'm going to assume if there's any hit, the ship is gone. And it's hit on all 5 and 6 are hits. So we'll have the green go. They have 2 dice, 1 hit, and they can take 1 damage. So I'll put a damage indicator there. Or they can take 2 damage total, and they've taken 1, so I'll put a damage indicator there. Now Centaurian resistance. They get 3 dice rolls. No hits, which is fortunate. Then green will go. 2 dice rolls. Nope. Centaurian resistance. 3 hits. That's no good. Wiped them both out. So that was a failed battle.